On October 21st and 22nd, join indie podcasters from all around the world at the 5th Annual Afros and Audio Podcast Festival, the first 2-day conference for and by Black indie podcast creatives and audio professionals. This year's conference will be held at the Reginald F. Lewis Museum in downtown Baltimore, Maryland, or virtually on the Hoover Event app for exclusive online sessions. Stay with us at the Renaissance Harbor Place Hotel and experience 2 days of panels, workshops, networking opportunities, and live entertainment for aspiring, new, and established podcast creatives. Don't miss one of the most anticipated events in the podcast industry, committed to community and collaboration since 2019. Learn more and purchase your tickets at afrosandaudio.com. See you there.
Welcome back to another episode of Q Points Podcast. I am DJ Sir Daniel.
And my name is Jay Ray, sometimes known by my government as Johnny Ray Cornegay III. What's happening, people?
Q Points Podcast is the podcast dropping the needle on Black music history. Jay Ray, what it do? What's going on with you?
Yo, I just got back from New York like hours ago. I was
Wow.
in New York, checking out a quick screening of Rustin, which will be out in November. Y'all definitely get ready for Rustin. It is a beautiful film and just an amazing story about Black history. And so definitely get ready for that. Sir Daniel, how are you?
I am absolutely wonderful. Happy to be here again to record this episode of Q Points because it's a very special episode to you.
It is.
And I love when we get to discuss works, bodies of work or artists that are very important to us for very specific reasons. So, and apparently, this body of work is important to a lot of people. Shout out to everybody that's tuning in for the very first time or is tuning in live with us. We are about to enjoy this conversation because the album we're going to talk about, J. Ray, and it's so funny that the weather has broken.
Mm-hmm.
There's that little crispness in the air. It ain't time for no damn pumpkin lattes, though. That's where I stop. That's where I draw.
You know
the
they're
line.
already on sale.
I draw the line at pumpkin lattes, candy corn. You know who you offenders are, and Halloween candy. Let's let September finish its magic completely before we get into all of that. But I will say, the body of work, the album that we're going to be discussing on this particular episode of Q Points Podcast, reminds me. It feels like autumn.
Yeah.
It feels like fall. It feels like the changing of the seasons. Jerry, you and I are about to tip off. Speaking of keeping it moving, we are about to tip off to the Charm City, the city of Baltimore, next month.
Big fun.
For big fun for the Afros and Audios conference. If you saw the promo earlier, you know what's going on. But we're inviting all of you, independent podcasters to come on out, Black podcasters. This is definitely where you want to be. You want to be amongst your tribe. You want to learn as much as you can about this podcasting industry and how you can make it work for you. There's so many awesome people to meet there. So many people that don't eat candy corn.
Oh my God, y'all are going in about this candy corn in the chat.
And it's fine. I see that. I acknowledge them and it's fine. But as for me and my house, candy corn is just a no-go. But back to the podcast festival, the Afros and Audios conference. J. Ray, just tell them. Well, they can just follow us. All of our socials have all the information about the Afros and Audios podcast festival, right?
Yep. Come on down. If you're in the Baltimore area, definitely let us know. But we'll be at Afros and Audio. We have a session. We have a breakout session.
So when we come back after this break, speaking of appreciation, J Ray has got like a cornucopia, a basket of appreciation for this album that we're going to talk about. We're talking about The Foreign Exchange and Leave It All Behind.
Yeah.
But don't leave us. You stay right where you are and come back after this break. It's Q Points Podcast, dropping the needle on Black music history. We'll be right back.
If you love Black music, you got to check out Q Points.
I'm Sir Daniel, and I'm a DJ.
I'm J Ray, a lover of Black music history.
Join us as two music heads give you the lowdown on everything from the dopest MCs to hip-hop and fashion.
Listen to Q Points on your favorite podcast platform and check out our website at qpoints.com.
That's QUEUE points.com. 2008.
Yeah.
What was the country was about to, make history by electing its first Black president.
Yeah.
I know exactly where I was in 2008, what kind of mind state I was in. But where were you, J Ray? What were you? Where were you mentally, physically at the time in 2008, and what attracted you to this album?
Oh, that is a great question. So 2008, I was living in the Midwest. So I spent half of 2008 in Dayton, Ohio, and I spent the last half, the half where this album resides, in I was living in Auburn Hills, Michigan at the time. And it was a time of tremendous change. I was in a long-term relationship that was in a weird place. And I think, and I'm curious to know for people in the chat too, let us know where you were in 2008 and why this album resonates with you, because we may have some similarities in why this album resonates. But I was also where you, like you talked about, right? The nation and the world was in this really kind of transitional place. Everybody was feeling hope. Remember, that was the big thing, hope.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And change. And my mind was like opening in a different way. So throughout my entire life, there are these points where there's forks in the road in terms of the music I listen to, like that change. 2008 was one of those, and Leave It All Behind is one of 3 records in a 3-month span that really did that for me. Then the time before that happened was in 2000 with Slum Village's Fantastic Volume 2. But saying all this to say, I was in the Midwest. I was exploring life differently, but also navigating challenging moments in my relationship at the time. Where were you in 2008?
So 2008, I had gotten my very first adult job that was salaried, that had benefits. I was working for the state. I have moved into my very first apartment. Well, no, take that back. It wasn't my first apartment, but I moved into an apartment where I really was like completely on my own, paying rent. I was being exposed to the juvenile legal system and all of the things that come along with that. Like you, I was experiencing, as the nation was experiencing, the rapid change that we were going through and about to elect the very first Black president. So there was that hope, but there was also dealing with some of the backlash that might have come along with that. Musically, our good friend Drama Dupree and I had started Better Days Radio around that time. Yep, we had started Better Days Radio around that time. So this was like in the infancy of podcasting. Everything was, if you did a podcast, and everything was blog driven. So that's how, and I'm going to be very transparent with you guys, I am late to the Leave It All Behind party. I know of Foreign Exchange because I was very much into the music blogs. I was into the Concrete Loops, the Crunk and Disorderlies, all of those music blogs, and I would see things about it. I had like one of the mixtapes from that was adjacent to Foreign Exchange. So, I knew of them, but I was not, I'm late to the party. I was late to the party, right? But that's what I love about Q Points is that we have a relationship, not just you and I, but we have a relationship with our listeners, and I see them already in the chat. So many of them, their experiences, J. Ray, are mirroring yours, and everybody seems to be have been going through a season of change.
Yeah.
And this album came out during the actual season of change. And I find that so interesting how music has that through line, how it can hit us all at the same time, and we have very similar experiences. And sidebar, did you know that you no longer have to capitalize the seasons? Like, remember when we were growing up, there were proper nouns, like autumn, fall, spring. We would capitalize those words, but you know what? They just say forget it all. They don't, people don't even write in cursive anymore. So I'm not surprised. But yes. So I digress. Let's get back into Foreign Exchange and how Leave It All Behind came about, J. Ray. Just give us a little brief history about that.
Yeah. And for those of you all who are joining, many folks, or for those who are joining live, and for folks who might be listening to this is history that is probably familiar. But I think we need to go back a step into the Foreign Exchange because I think that's really important context to kind of have. So, in the early 2000s, really in the late 90s and the early 2000s, to Sir Daniel's point, there began the emergence of message boards that were really popular. Right.
Yes.
And one of those message boards was the Okayplayer message boards. Now, to be very clear, Okayplayer was the foundation of the Roots. It is where the Roots digital platform lived. And they had this website called Okayplayer, and it was all things music, independent, and it was across the board. The Okayplayer message boards were like the original like internet tastemakers. If the people on the Okayplayer message boards were talking about you and you blew up there, you were probably going to have a pretty successful career. So, of course, Phonte was a member of Little Brother. Little Brother had a huge coming out with their debut album, The Listening. It was huge on the Okayplayer message boards. And not only that, Phonte was on the boards too. So that was the other thing about the Okayplayer message boards that were really interesting is like your celebrities were also in there too. So you would have Erykah Badu in there and Jill Scott in there and Phonte in there. And it was just like regular conversation about music. So these people were like in the boards too. So anyway, in between Little Brother's debut album and their second album, The Minstrel Show, this side project of Phonte's dropped called Connected with this lovely blue sunlit cover. And the group was called The Foreign Exchange, and the message boards lit up like lightning bolts because, this was a new Phonte project that wasn't Little Brother, right? And Connected became this kind of phenomenon where it was an independent, beautiful hip-hop record with these great R&B sensibilities. So, and the whole record, Phonte's writing partner and production partner for The Foreign Exchange was Nicolay. So there was this brother named Nicolay. Now, the cool part about this is Phonte and Nicolay met on the Okayplayer message boards, and that's how Connected came about. So an entire record came about via these message boards. These folk, Nicolay hadn't moved to the US. He didn't move to the US until 2006. So we get this lovely record that includes so many gems. Like right now, Sir Daniel, this is for your set. I don't know if you've played this joint yet in your slow jam set, but Come Around featuring Darian Brockington, who folks in the chat are going
Already
crazy.
talking about him.
Yo, Darian is a beast. All of these are North Carolina folks too, which is dope. But Come Around from the Foreign Exchange's debut album is like a marvelous R&B joint. So, Leave It All Behind really emerges as Nicolay moves to the United States in 2006. They both recognize that, yo, Come Around was like a joint from our record. And instead of repeating what they had done, which was essentially a hip hop record with a little bit of R&B, Phonte was already known as a rapper who could sing. They did a complete left turn and decided that Phonte would sing on basically 90% of the album. So there's no straight ahead hip hop joints on Leave It All Behind. It's essentially an R&B album, an electro R&B album in a lot of senses, and we'll talk about why that's important in a bit. But that's how Leave It All Behind kind of came about. It came out after Little Brother's 2007 record, which was called Left Back. Little Brother had gone from a trio to a duo. And so in 2007, we had gotten Left Back. And in 2008, we got this surprise album of Leave It All Behind as an R&B record with Phonte singing the whole thing.
How did Phonte the singer, let's talk about that. Because for whatever reason, people still act like an MC that is equally blessed to be able to sing can't do two things at the same time. I'm like, have you all never heard of The Sequence?
Right.
Let's take it all the way back. Have you never heard of The Sequence featuring Angie Stone? Rappers that could sing. Queen Latifah. People there, our good friend Rob Wilson went viral again on Twitter for responding to somebody who did not know that Queen Latifah could sing when she sang the national anthem at a recent baseball game. And it's like, you couldn't have possibly have been following this woman's career in its entirety, because she's been singing. She came out the box singing her own hook. And then, of course, we had Lauryn Hill, who changed CeeLo. Goody, I'll never forget, there was a Goody Mob was performing at a show and a fight broke out, and they stopped the music, and CeeLo started singing a spiritual or a hymn, and completely calmed the audience down just by him singing. And the list goes on. And of course, we have Drake, who is carrying that torch of rappers who can sing. Why is it still such a, so taboo to use both your talents in this game? I don't get it.
Well, I think you bring up a really interesting point. Sidebar. And we're going to talk about this later. I truly, truly believe that it's Phonte that really did and that has inspired Drake's singing, and because he started doing it so early, and I know that Drake is a fan, was a Little Brother fan. So I truly believe that his looking at Phonte and what Phonte did really did give Drake kind of the gumption to do it.
So Drake is Fonte's son, is basically what you're saying.
Essentially, new Tigolo. So, but to answer your question, and I'm curious to know what folks in the chat think about this, I actually think it's less taboo for women to do it. It's less taboo for women to do it, right? It is more taboo. I'm sure there are more rappers out there who are vocally gifted that probably don't do it because of all of the stigma that goes into what it means if I sing, what it means if I show vulnerability.
Yeah.
And
what it
That's
means if I unbutton my top shirt and show
mhm,
my chest hairs and gold chains,
right.
all of that stuff. Yes,
All
you're
of that
right.
stuff. So I really do think it is taboo because of this continuous fight that we have around masculinity and the masks that men have to put on in that vein. And I see Mark in the chat talking about, I agree, singing is probably seen as feminine. I believe Snoop could actually sing if he tried. I actually believe, I agree with you, Mark. I believe that there are so many of
Ooh.
our rappers who, if they leaned into it a little bit, actually could do some things on the mic.
Like for Pharrell,
Pharrell.
Pharrell has shown his dexterity
Yeah.
marvelously over the years. Like I'll never forget when the first time I heard him like singing. I was like, Pharrell is really holding these notes. Like he's really good at singing, and it took their career to another level. It took him to another level.
Mhm.
So I don't know. It's just this, patriarchy once again, looming its ugly shadow over everything that we do and everything that we could possibly enjoy in this life. But
Yeah.
J Ray, now that's a name I haven't seen in a minute. I'm sorry. I want to give a shout out to Wani,
Hey,
one
Wani.
of our day ones. We haven't seen her name pop up in a long time, but I just saw that and just got excited and wanted to acknowledge Wani. But so J Ray, clearly this album means a lot to you.
Yeah.
It's a lot. You studied it. You've got
Yeah.
plenty of post-it notes all over this album, everywhere. Like, what? Tell us about what it means to you. Like, what does it do to your shando when you hear that record and you hear it to this day? Because it still sounds fresh.
It still
Like
sounds
it
fresh.
doesn't sound dated at all.
No. So I want to take a step back before I talk about what this record does for me.
Mm-hmm.
I want to talk about I want to talk about the people who are on the record because I think it's really important. Leave It All Behind is constructed kind of like, it feels like it's constructed in a cocoon, much like you talked about. Like, I imagine this is probably not true because I'm sure they recorded this record over like a period of time, but I imagine them all in the studio with like hot cocoa. Like, coming
Pumpkin
up with
latte, pumpkin
melodies.
spice. Yes,
I'm sure that didn't happen.
that
But
didn't happen.
it didn't happen. But so the collaborators. So first and foremost, the first thing we get that becomes signature to Little Brother, which we first heard on Connected, I was immediately like, I remember when I first played this record and I heard the foreign exchange theme. So at the beginning of every foreign exchange record starts exactly the same. The only thing that changes about that little synth thing that's like a wavy synth is the pitch. It'll sometimes go up and it'll go down, but it's exactly the same thing. And I'm like, oh, wait, they did that on the last record. Okay, we're establishing a through line. But the first voice we get is this woman who I had never heard of before this album, who's a phenomenon. So one of the collaborators on this record is Musina. And I'm curious to know, for folks in the chat that might know, I don't know if Musina's actually sang the songs on this record live. Yazara went on tour with them when I saw them in 2008. I don't know that Musina's ever done these songs. So if someone knows and if someone has seen Foreign Exchange live and Musina's been the woman vocalist, let us know. But you have Musina. You have, of course, Darian Brockington. You have Yazara, who I also mentioned. You have Zoe. And of course, you have Fonte and Nicolay as kind of the anchors, of the record. And even Fonte has an alias, Victor St. Clair. So it's like backgrounds by Victor St. Clair. It's just Fonte doing background vocals, right? But so you have this nucleus of people along with a few other musicians as well. And the thing about the record that I love is that it chronicles the complexities of love in a way that feels very real. And from a male perspective, so you have Fonte talking about, you can blame it all on me tonight. Don't want to walk away tonight. I'll be the bigger man. You just keep on trying to push me away, but I'm not leaving. We got so far to go. My God, there were times in that relationship, right, that where this album showed up. Those were the words. I didn't have the words. This album gave me the words. You know what I'm saying? And so this record did that, right? It gave me language. The second thing is, and I don't know how Nicolay does this, even though he is using these electronic instruments, they feel really organic. Like it feels like feeling. You know what I'm saying? And so there's all of these moments in the record where it's like the sounds are moving through the body. There is something in that is spiritual. Shout out to Nicolay. I don't know what you read. I don't know if it's because you brought that from your home country. Nicolay is Dutch. I don't know I don't know. But what I know is it feels real different. And I like it. So that.
Well, thank you for sharing that, one, because I really believe music, very sustainable music, does the same thing to a lot of people. And like we hear people talking about Mary albums the same way. When something gives you a language or fills in the blanks for you, you tend to really, really love on that piece of work. And so as we continue to talk about it, like I said, I was late to the party.
Yes. So what are your thoughts? Like, what did you feel?
J-Ray gave me homework. Of course, I had to listen to the album. And it wasn't a hard listen at all. I see why you love it. Like I said, when I listening to it in its entirety, like I'm driving with the window down. I no longer have to have the AC on. There's a easiness to it, but it's not boring by any means. I feel like everything that we've discussed, including drum and bass and trip hop, enters into this album as well. And when we get towards the end, because I have three favorites. My first one is the Coming Home revamp.
Yeah.
Like I love, so there's a lot of this technique that I think I became cognizant of, like Missy and Timbaland doing that with their songs, where one song kind of trails off before the track ends, and then there's like a revamp or a new song introduced at the very tail end of that song. And so a lot of that happened on Leave It All Behind. And so Coming Home, the song you were discussing earlier, as far as the lyrics are concerned, is at the tail, is the revamp of that particular song. What is it called again?
I Want to Know.
I Want to Know. And then Coming Home.
It's where we say a whole lot of bad things that me don't mean. You think it's either right or wrong, and there's no in between. I don't feel like a fight today, so I'll just keep moving on. Listen,
y'all. See, I don't have to say nothing. J-Ray is rattling off lyrics like they came out yesterday. Those lyrics are embedded. They're imprinted on his whole psyche. That's how much this album means to him. But there was something about the Fonte in the beginning of that song, the way he is pleading, but not in a lascivious way. There's a difference. This is definitely no Robert Kelly thing. He's pleading, but in a very different way. He's pleading in a language that's emotionally mature. That's what came across to me. It was very emotionally mature, but then I think I just really liked the coming home part because it slapped. Like the tempo went up a little bit. I was like, okay, this is slap. I think maybe she might be changing her mind, and so now he's a little bit, that the whole baby please part is absolutely taking into effect, and it might be yielding some prospects to him. So that's why I really like that song. And then I just like that. I hope I said this right. Valedictician.
Yes.
I appreciated Valedictician. It just took me to another place, and again, not a hard listen, just something I could just sit back to and just let it take me wherever. I was not necessarily transported, but I was definitely placed into a mood, into an ease. I love the Stevie Wonder remake.
Yes.
The Stevie Wonder remake. But If This Is Love is the joint with featuring Yazara. That was the joint.
That song, and Nicolay has talked about this. That song was kind of Nicolay's just kind of geeking out of like, I want to play with all of my instruments, my electronic bag, and just kind of do the thing. So to your point, when we talk about what drum and bass was doing, like it has a lot of those double times and like playing around with that. And so I agree with you. My favorite song, and we're curious. So folks, drop in the chat too, for those who are joining live, what's your favorite song? And for those who are listening back, let us know by, hitting us up online or shooting us an email. But my favorite song actually is I think Leave It All Behind is my favorite song, which as Fonte tells it, it's about the Sean Bell shooting, the Sean Bell murder. And the reaction for those cops and all of that. So Leave It All Behind really does have this emotional connection to the plight of police violence on Black bodies. And so Leave It All Behind, I think it is my favorite. I keep saying think is my favorite because I listen to this record as a body of work. I kind of just start at the beginning and just kind of keep going. So if you ever get in the car with me and Leave It All Behind is on, you're probably just going to hear the whole thing. So it's what's going to happen. Sorry, kids. But Leave It All Behind, number one. Number two, House of Cards. Because House of Cards is a lot of stuff. It's a lot of stuff in that song lyrically and musically that I'm really into, and that idea of you can only hide yourself for so long or your house of cards are going to fall, right? Sooner or later you're going to pay for these things, right, that you have done. And so I love all of that, just kind of that spiritual aspect of House of Cards. And you know what? And dang, this is hard. I'm looking at the thing. You know what? Damn, I don't know if I have a favorite third. But it might be Take Off the Blues. I think that's a jam. I play it a lot. I love Darian Brockington. And Something to Behold is great too. I mean, Sante is singing, it feels really good. He's talking about chicken wings. It's a lot going on in that song. So anyway, I'm curious. Or one of the things I want to quickly talk about is why I think celebrating this record in its 15th anniversary is really important to Black music history, real quick. And one I talked about earlier, I do think Fonte gave rappers room to explore differently.
Right.
So while I know that this record didn't inspire like a Kanye, because 808s and Heartbreak came out like a month after this record. So it's not far enough away. You know what I'm saying? But what I know is whatever was in the happening in the universe in 2008, like we were talking about, if you were willing to ride the wave, you left differently. You came out of 2008 differently than when you came in, right? And I think that Fonte gave rappers room to explore emotion in a way. The other reason I think it's important to Black music history is we'd always had independent artists, but Fonte had this interesting experience of starting on an indie label, jumping into a major label thing, it not working out, it going left all the way, and then leaning into his independent bag and like, I'm just going to leave it all behind and do something totally different. And win and get nominated for a Grammy. Not to say that the Grammy mattered, but just the idea of taking this big leap forward ultimately led to it. So I think those are the two reasons I think it's really important. I do think from an emotion standpoint for rappers, but also as an independent artist, because being independent in 2008 is different than being independent in 2023, because now there's like a space for all of it. But in 2008, it was still like everybody still wanted the major label bag, and they carved out a whole space for themselves that was special.
Well, I appreciate, J. Ray, you laying this out so spectacularly for us and making room for the others, for our listeners to share their love for this album as well, because the chat is on fire right now about everybody's different songs that they love from that era. And so thank you for sharing that. Thank you for your transparency. Go ahead. You have another point?
Yeah, one more thing I don't want to leave behind. These are going to be like puns we do the entire night.
Through the whole night.
And this is also some more Nicolay love, because and we all remember this in the early 90s, coming out of the 80s, everything went from being electronic to all of a sudden everybody was playing like acoustic instruments again. Like Prince famously got rid of all of his like keyboards and stuff like in his studio, and was like everything was just like, acoustic instruments or whatever. Like, it was not going to be, no electronic nothing. And obviously we know that it didn't completely go away, but I think Nicolay adding that soul and that feeling in those electronic instruments, I think is also something really important. Because not that it was reintroduced, but it gave R&B kind of a different sound. It didn't all have to be, live drums in the studio. It was okay to program these and it sound like programmed drums. It's okay to use this synthy sound thing in If This Is Love, right? Which sounds beautiful, but it's all it's okay. Yeah. And I think, of course, Timbaland gave us room. I think this kind of expanded on that whole idea and really added some new feeling. So I just wanted to say that real quick before we end it.
No, definitely received. And to your point, I really think music that is made with a pure intention, and the music that comes from just basically from a person's love of the art, of the craft, and having something to say, is always going to give us a body of work that is going to resonate with people like J. Ray, with people like Mark and Kimberly, that's going to that's what makes an album a classic, because it went beyond just a sound, but it hit something in your soul. It hit something, it resonated with you through everything that you were going through at the time, and it still stick. Like, I can see it in your face, like you kind of transported back to what you were going through in that time. And that's the power of great music, and we celebrate that here on Q Points. And thank you for sharing that, J. Ray. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Q Points. I am DJ Sir Daniel.
My name is J. Ray, y'all.
We are Q Points Podcast, dropping the needle on Black music history. We'll see you on the next go round. Peace.